Putin replaces Obama in world leadership role. I have things to do today, but I had to read this one by Paul Craig Roberts, dated today, September 13th, 2013. Putin's article in the September 11th New York Times has the stuck pigs squealing. The squealing stuck pigs are just who you thought they would be, all those whose agendas and profits would be furthered by an attack on Syria by the Obama Stasi regime. Now, whose agendas and profits would be furthered by an attack on Syria? What is meant by Obama Stasi regime? I'm afraid that those two ideas would go over the heads of most readers. Is Paul Craig Roberts afraid to say it? Why didn't he explain what Obama Stasi means? Included among the squealing stuck pigs are Human Rights Watch bloggers who seem to be financed out of the CIA's back pocket. Well, there are human rights violations in Syria, but there are also human rights violations in America, and America is committing human rights violations in the occupied countries of Iraq and Afghanistan, and has no business moralizing to the world what human rights should be. Instead, the USA should practice what they preach at home. We have a hypocritical government, and for some reason the American people don't see it that way. And I suspect that it's a case of mind control. We know they perfected mind control. We don't know why everybody in America isn't saying, practice what you preach to Obama. Instead, they let him stand up in front of the nation like Adolf Hitler, give one of his propaganda speeches, and he is confident that the media has been silenced. He is confident that he will get away with this. And so the people who have the capability of making videos, people who have the understanding of what's going on, have a moral obligation to speak out. Paul Craig Roberts is speaking out at great risk to his own life. And if you notice in the first paragraph, he did not cross the line. He left it vague, and that way he lives a little bit longer. There is a beautiful picture on this page which really conveys an important idea. It's a picture of Adolf Hitler signing papers, and Obama is reaching for the pen. In other words, as soon as one dictator finishes signing, he hands the pen to the next dictator, and he signs the same kind of orders. And I agree completely. And apparently War is Crime thinks that this picture is so brilliant that they put their name on it, and they want to be recognized as the originator of this idea. It's very well done. You're always looking as a writer to find the picture that conveys the idea. And here it is, folks. Adolf Hitler signing papers, Obama reaching for the pen when he's done. That suggests that Nazis are in control in America, and that their puppet is Obama. Don't forget, Adolf Hitler was a puppet. The real dictators are never known by the general public. They operate behind the scenes, and they finance the Adolf Hitlers. And all the public writes the history about Adolf Hitler, and they forget that he was a puppet. Obama is a puppet. Those who are controlling Obama are the real dictators. And I did a video about the Three Stooges, because in 1940, when they made that video, the writers understood what the dictatorship is all about. And they convinced Three Stooges to be the dictators. And at the end of the Three Stooges episode, you have the Three Stooges running for their lives as all hell comes down on the kingdom or the dictatorship. And those who operated behind the scenes without a name, without a face like we have today, continue. And the Three Stooges, the puppets, might be slaughtered by the rebelling crowds. And the rebelling crowds might be completely satisfied that they eliminated the dictator. But the truth is, they didn't even know the name of the dictator. And look what Paul Craig Roberts calls them, the squealing stuck pigs. He won't name them by name, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati, all the police who violate constitutional rights, all in support of the Nazis. All governors who have managed to get fluoride into your drinking water, mandated from the top. What is the top? The top should be the people. But the top goes all the way to the UN. They now decide when America goes to war. To the governors, the top might be the president. He's a puppet. He's a dictator. He dismantled the Constitution, and all of you guys in government took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, and none of you are doing your job. None of you. All of you are in support of Nazis. You are all guilty of turning this country into a Nazi dictatorship. And all of you people out there have a duty to spread the truth, undermine this dictatorship, approach the military and the cops, who both think they are heroes. I received a comment from a former military man, and he was upset with me because he thinks I offended the military. And he was very ignorant, and he wrote very poorly, and he had a bad education. His thought processes were not clear, and of course his conclusions were erroneous. And I asked him, how many babies and children did you kill? And he said, I lost count. And he didn't care. He felt they were all deserving of being murdered. When soldiers murder civilians and children, those are war crimes. He was not cognizant of the war crimes he had committed. This is a result of propaganda. This is a result of total mind control. Soldiers must be responsible. Soldiers must have some moral code because it's their soul. They are responsible for the things they do. We are born into this world alone. And when we go out, we usually go out alone. We're not born as a group and go out as a group. We are alone because life is an individual's lessons. And from what I've read, you judge yourself at the end. And you decide what life you will have next in order to learn the lessons you feel you need to learn next. Those military men who kill children, hopefully the fog will be gone, and at their time of life review, they will see their errors. They will see how they were manipulated, mind-controlled by evil entities. And they may come back in one of those war-torn countries to serve out a life as a child, a victim of the American oppression, illegal invasion, unconstitutional occupation, and they may live 1,000 lifetimes in that role of being the victim in order to pay for their crimes against humanity. I don't know what life is all about. I don't know why anyone would create a world in which we're learning, especially if they have the ability to just grant us anything. They could grant us all of this knowledge. Why put us through it? Why this 3D world experience? I have big questions. I will probably die before they're answered. But I'm reading everything I can to try to understand what's going on, not just in America and the world, but what's going on in the big picture of life. Who is behind all of this? What is the purpose? Well, I feel compelled to speak out against war crimes, especially against children. Defenseless children, defenseless civilians, who first had to put up with Saddam Hussein, and now they have to put up with Obama and American aggression. And Paul Craig Roberts is one of my favorite writers because he says it the way I see it, he speaks the truth, and he seems to be fearless, but wise. He refers to this group as the squealing stuck pigs. Now this phrase is particularly offensive if Jews are involved because of the pig association. Muslims and Jews don't eat pig. The Jews feel that the trichinosis worm can infect them, and that's why they don't eat it. But we know that cooking the meat kills that worm, but they still won't eat it. Now, I believe that Israel has an agenda, especially Mossad. I believe that 9/11 was done by Mossad and the CIA and the other squealing stuck pigs who have an agenda. And we just passed the 12th year of 9/11. An inside job, false flag terrorist attack by our own country on our own people, on our own soil. All intelligent and well-educated people agree that it was an inside job, except those who are under mind control. The CIA mastered mind control a long time ago, and they've been using it for decades. And that's why they pulled off 9/11, is because they were sure they could get away with it. And so far, they're right. They did get away with it. They knew that some of the people would figure it out. And when foreigners figured it out first, I wondered what's going on in America. Are we not as intelligent as they are? No, no. The answer is there is mind control here. The cable television has subliminal messages. The CIA has devices that send out a frequency that confuse or send an idea into the minds of each person. And I've read about it, and I've read on this channel to the public about it. Look up time travel and watch the videos about the Phoenix Project, and you will learn a lot about what they are capable of. So Paul Craig Roberts says, included among the squealing stuck pigs are Human Rights Watch bloggers who seem to be financed out of the CIA's back pocket. In other words, drug money. I hope it's clear to everyone by now that the CIA is the biggest drug dealer in the world, and all this bullshit about laundering money, and they have to protect you against some drug dealer laundering money, is all bullshit. It's about control of the money. It's about knowing all of your private details. For what purpose? So they can take it from you. So they control you so you don't buy Bitcoin. And they have the ability to regulate companies to death. They seized accounts of Dwala, Mt. Gox, and if you don't know who these companies are, it might be a good idea for you to learn, because Dwala is extremely important. I believe they're out of Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. You can send money anywhere you want. If it's less than $10, it's free, and if it's over $10, it's a quarter, 25 cents. But I'm not their representative. You really should go to their webpage and find out what they're all about. Mt. Gox is the exchange which handles cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin and Litecoin. And this government has the ability to close down Mt. Gox and Dwala, and BitInstant and Bitstamp and anyone else they choose to close down, because they have all the countries of the world under their thumb. And so when Paul Craig Roberts refers to the CIA's back pocket, I believe he's hinting at the drug money. And then his next question is, does any institution remain that has not been corrupted by Washington's money? Well, Washington has no money except that they steal from us. And I'm not talking about income tax, because all of that goes to the IRS and none of it is spent on roads and bridges. That was determined by the Grace Commission report done in the early 1980s by Ronald Reagan. And he said it publicly. Not 1 cent paid to the IRS goes to any roads or bridges. And Joe Bannister says there's no law in the books that says Americans working in America have to pay the IRS or file a tax return. And you need to dig into that and find out the truth there. If you use a tax attorney or an accountant, you should ask him to show you the law. That's what Joe Bannister asked for, and there wasn't any. Now, this idea that Washington has money is bullshit. Governments have no money except what they take at gunpoint from the people. And this is out of control. Forcing you to buy this and forcing you to buy that and taking money right out of your paycheck before you even see it is all wrong. And it's about time that everybody recognized that it's wrong. Does any institution remain that has not been corrupted by Washington's money? Notice that the reason Putin is being criticized is that he has blocked the Obama regime, that's exactly what it is, from attacking Syria, and slaughtering countless numbers of Syrians in the name of human rights. Well, the U.S. has an agenda in Syria. They want this strategically important land for their purposes. Israel wants Syrians killed because they're enemies. And so Israel and the U.S. team up to commit atrocities in Syria. If you were worried about the domino effect of communist Russia and the Soviet Union, that domino effect is taking place today, and it's America that is taking over all of these countries. Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Syria, and about 10 others. They're all on the agenda to be invaded, occupied, and who's paying for all of this occupation? The American taxpayer with the gun to his head, who can't even buy food because the prices are so high. We have government lying to us, telling us that there is no inflation, and that's bullshit. We have 2 unnecessary wars and we don't need a third one. And this idea that this is being done for human rights is bullshit. We have human rights abuses right here at home. We don't have to go out into the world looking for them. The TSA is a human rights violation. Why should your genitals be touched when you get on an airplane? You are not the terrorist. The CIA are the terrorists. Mossad is the terrorist. How much longer will they get away with attributing this to human rights? How much longer will it be before the average American recognizes that Syria is strategically important for the regime that wants to take over the entire world? And I'm sick of paying for it. And many Americans are sick of paying for it. And the next sentence says, the stuck pigs are outraged that Obama's war has been blocked. They were so much looking forward to the mass slaughter that they believe would advance their profits and agendas. Most of Putin's critics are too intellectually challenged to comprehend that Putin's brilliant and humane article has left Putin the leader of the free world and defender of the rule of law, and exposed Obama for what he is, the leader of a rogue, lawless, unaccountable government committed to lies and war crimes. Putin is dangerous because he's so clever. He is so skilled at speaking and saying the right things and winning the public to his way of thinking. And he takes the moral high ground here. He is the one who said that breaking up the Soviet Union was a huge mistake. He is the one that moved in, and instead of having elected members of the Politburo, he changed it to appointments. He is a communist dictator. And he's so clever, he takes the moral high ground here, and he happens to be right. And I don't want to back any dictator. I see him as a dictator. He's been in control of Russia for far too long. The people don't want him, and their elections are rigged just like ours. Next paragraph. Putin, being diplomatic, was very careful in his criticism of Obama's September 10th speech, in which Obama sought to justify Washington's lawlessness in terms of American exceptionalism. Obama, attempting to lift his criminal regime by the bootstraps up into the moral heavens, claimed that the United States government policy is, quote, what makes America different. It's what makes us exceptional. Well, this is bullshit propaganda trying to rally America behind a war criminal government. These are war crimes, invading countries and occupying them for decades. Anybody who falls for this bullshit propaganda is a fluoride head, a fool, a mind control victim. And Paul Craig Roberts is exactly right. He says, what Obama told Americans is exactly what Hitler told the Germans. Now notice he's likening one dictator Nazi with another dictator Nazi. They share the same pen in this picture. The Russians, having borne more than anyone else the full weight of the German war machine, know how dangerous it is to encourage people to think of themselves as exceptional, unbound by law. The Geneva Conventions, the United Nations Security Council, and human concerns for others. Putin reminded Obama that God created us equal. I don't think Putin believes in God. And to invoke God here is to play the religious card, trying to rally all the religious people behind him. Well, we're not going to back any dictator. I'm not religious, but we the people are not going to back any dictator if we know what's going on. And that's the job of those who know what's going on, to tell the others what's going on, and to tell them that all leaders are bad, all of them. It doesn't matter if they're Chinese, Russian, or American, or English, or Syrian. They're all bad. What's good is people power. People are good. Leaders are bad. The power corrupts them. That's why we need to make sure that nobody has much power. And putting all of the power into the hands of one puppet is bullshit. That is a bullshit way of governing yourselves. And most Americans think it's correct. They're afraid of change. They resist it, like it's going into the darkness, going out into the dark forest at night when there are wild animals that can eat you. No, the wild animals that are eating you now. Look down at your legs. They're chewing your legs off. What we have is worse than what's out there in the darkness. Trust me. We need radical change. We voted for change, and what happened? We got chains. C-H-A-I-N-S. Next paragraph. If Putin wanted to give Obama the full rebuke that Obama deserves, comma, Putin could have said, quote, Obama is correct that the policy of the U.S. government is what makes the U.S. exceptional. The U.S. is the only country in the world that has attacked 8 countries in 12 years, murdering and dispossessing millions of Muslims, all on the basis of lies. This is not an exceptionalism of which to be proud, unquote. Now that is a quote by Paul Craig Roberts, not Putin. Putin would not make such a mistake as to say it bluntly like that. Instead, he says, God created us all equal, like Putin goes to church every Sunday. Bullshit. He meets with his puppets and tells them what to do next. He is a communist dictator. Let's not ever forget that. And all dictators are bad. And all leaders in the world are either puppets or they're dictators. Most of the countries of the world are bullied by the United States. And it's not the United States people, it's those who own the United States. Most of them are Europeans. The United States is a corporation. Don't forget that. That's a very important fact. Next paragraph. Putin is obviously more than a match for the immoral, low-grade morons that Americans put into high office. I disagree. We did not elect Obama. We wanted to elect a constitutional candidate who wanted to dispose of the IRS and the Federal Reserve, and the election was rigged, there was fraud, and we got robbed. We did not elect Obama. We had 2 candidates, both wanted war with Syria and Iran, both wanted a carbon tax, and both are puppets. The only 2 choices you had were the same party. Just like the Democrats and Republicans, it's the same party. Here's a good question to ponder. Why do we have 50 choices for Miss America and only 2 choices for president? It's because they only want us to have one party, and that's the Democrat-Republican Party. And all you people who serve in the House of Representatives and the Senate, you're all a bunch of cowards, traitors to your country. All of you who serve in military and kill children, you're a bunch of traitors. You're not heroes, you're cowards. And it's time for you guys to wake up. Your country does not care about you. They have you handle depleted uranium, and worse. They have you killing babies and threatening you with the loss of citizenship if you don't do what they say. And this is wrong. This is a war crime. You cannot support Nazis. If you do, you will wind up in Nazi land. And that's where we are today because of you in military. Putin is obviously more than a match for the immoral low-grade morons that Americans put into high office. Obama is not a moron. He is a lawyer who taught constitutional law. He knows very well what he's dismantling. Next sentence. However, Putin should not underestimate the mendacity of his enemies in Washington. Mendacity means liars. The ability to lie is mendacity. Spanish call it mentidosa. Putin warned that the militants that Washington is breeding in the Middle East are an issue of deep concern. When these militants return to their own countries, they spread destabilization, as when extremists used by the U.S. in the overthrow of Libya moved on to Mali. The destabilization of other countries is precisely the main aim of Washington's wars in the Middle East. Washington intends for radicalization of Muslims to spread strife into the Muslim populations of Russia and China. Washington's propaganda machine will then turn these terrorists into freedom fighters against the pressure of Russian and Chinese governments, and use Human Rights Watch and other organizations that Washington has penetrated and corrupted to denounce Russia and China for committing war crimes against freedom fighters. No doubt chemical weapons attacks will be orchestrated just as they have been in Syria. It is not a bad thing for Russian and Chinese governments to collapse and for each of those countries to break up into 1,000 smaller countries. But right now, there has to be a counter to the world's superpower that, by the way, can't even defeat the Taliban after a decade of fierce fighting. That means that the whole war is bullshit. How is it that a superpower could have such domination in the world and can't eliminate the Taliban? It's because the CIA funds the Taliban to keep them alive. They pay soldiers to do terrorist acts. And then they report it in the newspapers here so that Americans support the war. You're being played like a piano. They know where all your keys are and they know what to tell you. It's all bullshit. Paul Craig Roberts calls it propaganda. Washington's propaganda machine will then turn these terrorists into freedom fighters against Russia and Chinese governments. Next paragraph. If Washington's NATO puppet states wake up in time, the warmongers in Washington can be isolated and humanity can be spared World War III. I believe that we cannot avert World War III. Those in power have so much power and control not only of America, but of most of the world. I don't think that China and Russia could combine to stop these warmongers. They're intent on having World War III. What each of us citizens of the world must do is find the truth and spread the truth, because the truth undermines their power. They work very hard to put out propaganda, lies, bullshit. And we must work even harder to get the truth out. And it requires each one of you picking up a microphone, recording something, and putting it up on YouTube while you still can. Because when they cancel your right to free speech there, then we slide down into Nazi dictatorship, totalitarian control, and total slavery. We'll never come out of it. We'll never be able to climb out of that hole. The walls are slippery and you won't get out. Paul Craig Roberts, a former Assistant Secretary of the United States Treasury and former Associate Editor of the Wall Street Journal, has been reporting shocking cases of prosecutorial abuse for 2 decades. A new edition of his book, The Tyranny of Good Intentions, co-authored with Lawrence Stratton, a documented account of how Americans lost the protection of law, has been released by Random House. Visit his website. I recommend that you go to War is Crime, read the article that I just read without my comments, and I want you to read the ones that follow this article, because they're all good. It wouldn't hurt for you to start every day at War is Crime and read the latest articles that are being published there. I haven't found a website that has more of the kind of information I consider the truth. And if you don't have a lot of time, War is Crime is a good place for you to spend 10 minutes every day. Set up your computer so it opens to that page. It's very easy to do. Go into your browser settings. I can't remember exactly what it says. It's different on Firefox and Chrome, and I used to use Firefox all the time, and it became so slow that I switched to Chrome, and so Chrome is still new to me. But you can set it up by clicking Settings on Chrome, and it says, I think one of the first options is the opening page, startup page. Put in that URL there, and every day when you turn on your computer and open the browser, it will open up to War is Crime. You can read the articles just like you used to read the newspaper of the past before they were all taken over and under the control of the Nazis. I don't think it pays to read Pravda every morning, and that's what our newspapers have become. We criticized them, the Soviet Union, for having Pravda, and now we have Pravda. This is what happens when you give too much power to one individual. They become corrupt. And that one individual, you don't know his name, you don't know his face, you don't know his deeds, and it may not be one person, it might be a group of them. They control Washington. They control most other states in the world. And we all have to become informed in spite of the sea of propaganda.